put something in the chat room also so that the people know. Oh, this is real sharp. How it works. I'll put that out right now.
I feel like those live half-hour shoots we've been doing, the weeklies,
Yeah.
the thumbnails look real good for them.
Yeah.
That's a real attractive one today.
Sweet, man. The post is live. I'm going to put a little tweet out on the Kayfabe channel. But we're going, man.
Did you send me a link? Can you send me a
yeah,
link?
let me send that. My bad.
I don't know why that doesn't show up.
Yeah, just because it's unlisted.
I guess, but I mean...
Yeah, are you logged in with Kayfabe?
I am.
Yeah, that's all right. I'll email it to you.
I had a real good day yesterday at the gym running. It's so weird to be out of shape.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think about it, and this is the most out of shape I've been in my life.
Right.
It's a weird thing to realize.
All right, now we got good people in the starting to show up. Sent you that link.
Yep, got it.
I'm gonna put a little something in the chat for the fellas, man. Who our shoot interview guest is.
I'm eager to see conversation around that. Good morning, King Kayfabers. What a morning.
There it is. I'm gonna pin it to the top, guys. Peter Laird's our guy today. Very, very excited about it.
Yeah, lay in those questions, because I don't know, man. How many chances do you get to hear Peter Laird talk about his experience?
Very excited.
Yes.
Definitely one of the guys that I search for interviews with him on YouTube to just like listen to while I work, and there's nothing. There's those documentaries, Turtle Power.
Yep.
Like, it's good stuff, but it's like ain't nothing like being a guy who knows the questions that need to be asked, like. And he's very talkative. Like, that's the cool thing. Like, we were rapping, man. We were talking some shit. Oh, I just got a text from Peter. Good morning, Ed. Just want to let you know that woke up earlier than usual. Could start earlier than noon, he said.
Well,
let's see. Hold up.
Let's see see us get through these videos.
What else do we have to record? Cyberpunk, Contraband, 1963.
I have that Voodoo Child and the Hulk preview.
Yeah.
I don't know that any of those vids are that long.
Yeah.
I know they're all going to kick some ass.
Yeah.
I have this idea for a video. It'll be like 5 posers. I haven't quite worked out what the name should be, but it's essentially people who completely go ape on someone else's style.
Yeah.
Because I have 2 indies I just picked up in a 50-cent bin, where one is like early Jay Lee and one is Stephen Platt, which makes perfect sense for an early '90s book. Like if you're gonna copy somebody,
Right.
and then I've got some that are like huge Frank Miller copies. So I'm trying to figure out like 5 really good ones. I probably need about three more to add to the list, because the Jay Lee and the Platt are the whole reason I want to do it. Yeah. And then I know that there's some good Millers, so it's probably like cherry pick a good Frank Miller or 2, and then I don't know. There could be a Todd McFarlane one.
Here's the thing, Jimmy. Like, wait, I'm sorry to cut you off. His wife has a Zoom scheduled for 2 p.m.
Okay.
So that'll give us two hours. Should we just do a round, and then because we set up here, and then go in there and just use whatever time we can? Like, I would hate to cut off.
Yeah.
At 2 p.m.
Why don't we plan to do it at 11 and see what we get recorded?
Okay.
Because that'll give us 3 hours if we're up and running by 11.
Yeah, I'll tell them how about we do it at 11.
Yeah. I saw copies of that bootleg Spider-Man selling for $100 on eBay, and people were paying that.
There were dudes who said, like, you know, I hate that I'm that guy, but I bought 5 off of Mahdi, and I'm doing it. I'm selling them. Hey, listen, the people were warned. Jump on the Kayfabe King Kayfabe list, and you get those comics early, and you don't have to pay that premium. I ain't lying when I said that. If being part of the Patreon pays for itself.
Any plans to do the Brigade remaster? Is that out?
It is, and I don't know that we got copies.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that we got copies.
Is Tom in that one?
Yeah.
We'll have to do I figure we'll have to have Tom back at some point in the next month or so, and that would be the time to do a Brigade. We can all show our pages and talk a little bit.
Yeah, totally.
That was a fun one for me because I did everything on the page, like all the coloring and everything. So
that inspired me to do the practical color on my little girl comic.
Really?
Yeah, I like seeing the marker on the page.
It's real crazy how many tools we have of that nature now. Like just everything. Anything you make a mark with at this point is fair game.
That's it. You got some of your stuff ready to go? I got 3 of the bits. And then I'll have you pull them in, and this will be in no particular order kind of video.
I have this pile. And I have a couple of the '90s jobs too.
Good.
And I meant to flag these. I didn't realize this is what we were going to do first. Because there's a couple of pages in here that I feel like are really epitomize what we're talking about.
Yeah, we'll see about that because that'll be the conversation. What makes cyberpunk?
Yeah, definitely. Get that for a cover.
That's a great cover.
But there's stuff where, like, you can see, like they're superimposed in front of heads and brains and shit.
Yeah, that's sick.
It's funny to think about, we were talking ads in that last Wizard and how many fewer ads there were than normal. You look at, like, Marvel at its height, it is so loaded with ads.
Oh, totally.
You can totally see, like, when these guys are on the top of their game in terms of that.
17 pages of comics. The comic's still 32 pages, do the math. It doesn't got to be nothing special, man. These things don't got to be long. And I think the shoot interview will go a while,
Yeah, I just wanted to show off because, like, some of this stuff's really strong. And I think there's one more really good one to flag, and then I'll be ready to go. I also brought that. Look at that. Like, that to me is complete cyberpunk in it. Oh, shit. right, so that's that stack. And this guy.
Nice.
And these.
You got the Mobius?
Oh yeah, I do.
Because that's in the definite top 5.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be
the Godfather.
Yeah. Shit, maybe you should even maybe you could flag those.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we'll get going, man.
Sometimes I'll be flipping through a heavy metal like this, and there'll be whatever European artist,
Yeah.
and it'll look just like a Frank Miller line or something.
Sure.
And I just imagine like he had to have been consuming these things.
Totally. All right, man. You good?
Yeah. A lot of gear here. Ed.
Hit it.
All right.
Welcome to Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Ed Piscor.
I'm Jim Rugg.
Today we're going to be talking about cyberpunk. Take a look at the top 5 cyberpunk comics, but first, got to let you guys know that we have a Patreon that is doing very, very well for the channel, and you are invited to participate in that. If you're at the King Kayfabe level, you completely mitigate the Kayfabe effect because you're getting all of our videos before anybody. Plus, you're in the chat room right this moment watching us live stream the recording session. So I benefited from the Kayfabe effect quite a lot just from the stuff that we chose this past week, and you will too if you are on the Patreon. Before you is our bibliography of our comic books, and these videos are brought to you by the comic books that we make. Red Room is the focus on my plate these days. New Red Room comics are being solicited at your comic shop. Crypto Killers, issue number 1. Go to your store, put in a pre-order. Jimmy has Street Angel, Deadliest Girl Alive. Hulk Grand Design is out in the wild and is going to get that Treasury Edition format very, very soon. Plain James, this is Shoujo, all ages girl manga. Without further ado, Jimmy, let's talk cyberpunk comics. And throughout this conversation, I think we should have a talk about what makes up a good cyberpunk comic, because you think about, say, those like Cyberforce and Wildcats comics that are full of tech and things. It's not cyberpunk. It's missing a lot of important elements, and maybe we'll figure out the tropes of what it is to be a cyberpunk comic. Let's go with an obvious one, and no particular order with these things, man. I love them all, Jimmy.
Yeah, absolutely. Fun knowing this video is coming up this week and like kicking it around in my head of contenders for this, and I'm sure there'll be some fun discussion of like what we missed, because I'm sure there are a few other good contenders.
Put stuff in the comments, baby.
But then thinking about, like you say, what makes cyberpunk, and I think it's like future dystopia. It's the nightmare side of technology and what it promises.
Sure, but you need the urban setting, because the punk implies punk rock, like it implies culture. So you need to focus on a more human level. I think the urban setting is important, because where do you have punks if not some sort of cityscape? And you got to zero in kind of on a human level more often than not. But I like to see cool tech. I like to see cool vehicles, and part of that human level is like the fashions of the cyberpunk aesthetic. There are whole clothing lines that cater to a cyberpunk kind of aesthetic these days.
That's a good detail, and I think Akira really has all those elements.
If it didn't have the kid gang and stuff, like it might be hard sci-fi. It might just be a science fiction comic. See, that's the thing. There's like these very blurry lines between what is hard sci-fi, what is just a dystopian comic. Like Clockwork Orange, not really cyberpunk, but maybe you can make the argument. I don't know. We're having that conversation today.
Yeah, Akira definitely, I think, fits very squarely into the cyberpunk genre.
Yeah.
I don't know that anybody's going to dispute that. I was thinking about how just wires,
Sure.
having a bunch of wires whenever there's a visual component. But it is interesting how it almost becomes like this codified world almost. You can imagine some of the examples that we're going to look at and how they overlap with each other, where it's like it's almost a universe.
And I think that's an important component to it, man, because you're focusing on this human level. all good science fiction, and certainly the best of cyberpunk, has a world that's developing that you don't know much about. You have your singular character that is kind of the ignorant rube, that's your stand-in, that you're going to explore and discover this world a bit. All that said, leads us to our next.
One last note on Akira is stuff like taking a bike
Yeah.
and making that the future vehicle, like sort of giving it that little bit of futuristic sci-fi cool.
Here's an interesting piece.
Kind of an outgrowth of fashion.
The one thing I didn't look up before this video was when the Neuromancer novel came out, which is considered one of the proto cyberpunk novels. I think it might be in the 80s even. I think it might be like 84.
Oh, wow.
Which would be fascinating because Akira comes out 82 and is serialized until 1990. So it's almost like it actually like bore fruit in comics before that. I mean, way before Akira.
This is often cited as like, the beginning of cyberpunk. This is 1977, Mobius and Dan O'Bannon.
And it's actually 1976 in Metal Hurlant when it first sees the light of day. So.
And we have done a couple of videos on this. We did one ourselves.
What is it, Jimmy? The Long Tomorrow.
Right, The Long Tomorrow, again, written by Dan O'Bannon and drawn by Mobius. And we did another video where Jeff Darrow joins us and walks through this, page by page. So I encourage everybody to check those out because this is one of those great comics, regardless of cyberpunk or not, although there's no doubt that this is cyberpunk. This is practically cyberpunk 101.
Right.
Short and sweet. I think the whole story is about 13 pages or 15 pages, something like that. But it really lays out these tropes. And the other element this has on its sleeve that you don't see as much in Akira is attention to noir, like crime fiction. And kind of that, often you'll get the jaded PI guy in the middle. He's not a hero. He's seen it all, and yet he's still appalled by the world outside of his apartment.
Yeah, and think about Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which is considered like a proto-cyberpunk novel from the 60s, Philip K. Dick. That's where your Blade Runner comes from. You have your Decker PI-type guy going through this world where some wild shit is going down.
Yeah, identity is a big part, I think, too, especially with the idea of, like, cyberspace and, like, who are you in these two different worlds?
Right.
And you see it again, like, right in the beginning here in Long Tomorrow, where the girl who hires our hero isn't a girl at all.
Yes. If we wanted to cheat, say, like, okay, man, it's top 5 list, you can only pick 5. If you wanted to cheat, you could say the works of Masamune Shirow would be a contender. That would be one of the 5. But if we had to zero in, you go with Ghost in the Shell, probably.
Yeah, and you talked about Akira coming out in 82 and being sort of maybe ahead of the curve on this stuff.
Yes.
Ghost in the Shell, decades ahead of everything. Like, it's amazing to me. When do you know when it started? 87 or something?
Serialized in Young Magazine from 1989 to 1991. So it kind of benefited from the juice that Akira brought to Young Magazine, and Kodansha probably was like, let's get some more of that.
It makes total sense to have this following, and like a child of Akira in a lot of ways. But the tech in this stuff and the concepts that are explored. This one is cyberpunk through and through to me because it's exploring those concepts of like, what are the ramifications of this technology in the future? And again, with identity, like, who's even in control of some of these physical bodies?
Right. Yeah, hacking is a part of cyberpunk, which would be sort of like anti-authoritarian. You have this rampant high-tech infrastructure, and then you have the people that are pushing against it.
Oh, yeah. Don't trust anybody. Even people that you think are your allies may not be who you think they are all the time.
The interesting, noteworthy thing about the works of Masamune Shirow in connection with everything else that we are going to be looking at here today is that these realized worlds that he puts together, he's not making it easy for you to ride along. You don't really get your nubile doofus character who you learn everything about the world with. You're just dropped in. You are a fly on the wall in this fully realized world that's already going down. And if you're lucky, you might be able to hang your hat on a couple of new pieces of information. But a comic like this begs rereading.
Yeah, definitely. And, human life is cheap in these things.
Right.
You're also seeing the juxtaposition of super high tech next to, like, we'll go into a warehouse that's, very old compared to what we're seeing on the sci-fi side of things. So multiple worlds clashing.
Yeah. When it comes to the works of Shiro, also, I feel like there might be just a couple of bits that you can pull out, and it could just be complete, like literally like the definition of hard sci-fi. But just the way his style, his approach, I think one of the other pieces that is required for good cyberpunk is something that's come up in conversation with you and I kind of a lot lately since I've been back from Japan. But attitude is a component. There's a hipness to cyberpunk.
I think that's part of the punk too, the young.
Yeah.
You know, looking at this stuff, and even though we're looking at the future through kind of maybe a jaundiced view, it's still very much that youthful like expression of where does this lead? Where am I gonna? I'm a kid now with this new technology, but what's it gonna be like when I'm an adult? And yeah, it is a little bit flexible, you know, like there's a postmodernism, I think, there that makes it a little bit hard to define at times, because which elements of cyberpunk you hone in on are going to vary from book to book, from story to story.
It's true. Now, we've just looked at 3 different practical comics, pen and paper, dealing with, you know, hardcore science fiction themes. But I put it out to you, Jimmy, like, what would a cyberpunk comic look like? The 80s is a part of cyberpunk to me in a lot of ways. What would a comic book look like if they abandoned the pen and paper approach, still had the 80s vibe to it? What would that comic be, Jim?
I'm so glad you asked, Ed, because again, we do have a video on it, but Shatter, Mike Science, one of my favorite comics for a million reasons. And this is a black and white edition that Planet Lair, or Planet AIT put out. And hey man, don't discard Willie Mays like that. This is a great edition though, because it's black and white. And it's funny, the original comics, you know, the first computer comic, the colored analog, colored with, you know, the traditional methods. And it's funny, I say it's funny because color became the first mainstream application of digital in at least in Western comics. But here you see they get hold of a Mac and let's make the entire comic on this Mac.
There used to be these apps, like we were raised on those 1984 Apple Macintoshes because this guy Billy Campbell went to school at my school district, and he was a very early Apple employee. He created Intuit and Big Willie, man. So he adorned the school system with these 1984 Macs that we were still using in 1994, by the way. And there were these.
That's how it works.
Yeah, and there were these.
There's some cyberpunk in that.
But it would just be like, you know, plug and play clip art things that where you can make your own comics. So like it would all have this exact font as well.
Yeah, I have manuals for some of those softwares because I think it's so interesting. But if you look closely, like this is the same story that we're seeing, you know, in these other examples of cyberpunk, where it's like the PI who has just seen it all and he's world weary, and of course the people that hire him aren't on the up and up either. So you have kind of this PI story, but through the lens of how cutting edge can we be in the production of this thing.
Yeah.
And it's pretty interesting, this edition, not just for the content, but the backstory is like an Apple employee found, or an Adobe employee found a copy of this. I believe the publisher's wife may have been working at Adobe. And so when this book comes out and her coworkers see it,
you're talking about from First Comics, the original iteration.
No, this version, this new version, this black and white version, because this came out in the early 2000s. Whenever they see it, they buy the whole print run, a couple thousand copies, because it's so compelling. If you're working in this industry of like visual arts but digital, this is really, really the beginning. Yeah, certainly in the comic side of it.
Look, he even introduced the Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury.
How about that? I thought that flipping through there too.
Into the comic. Also very noteworthy, Mike Sainz is this bleeding edge guy in the history of comics and comics technology where the computer is concerned. Did a couple of different digital Marvel comics. And did he do DC? He's not Digital Justice.
No, he didn't do Digital Justice, but he did the Iron Man graphic novel Crash, which I see pop up now and then online.
Color comic.
Yeah, and early 3D stuff. Donna Matrix is really whenever he got squarely in my sights. And as he's developing, because that would have been into the 90s, as he's developing that technology, he ends up doing like CD-ROMs and basically adult video games with it. But it's cool to see, and I think this back matter is a prototype. I think this is the first comic they tried to make before they sell Shutter and actually get it published. And you see some notes on the bottom basically talking about buying their first Mac, and Peter Gillis, the writer, when I say, you know, they, two of them working on this.
I feel like the built-in Mac font was Zap Dingbats.
It looks like it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But pretty wild, you know. Like, this is one that stylistically is also wearing that cyberpunk on its sleeve. You know, Ed, you mentioned something about Ghost in a Shell, where it's like you're just dropped in, you know, sort of into the fast lane.
Cold.
And you've got to catch up on your own. I think that's an element of cyberpunk because a lot of it comes out of prose. And when you're reading about descriptions of, say, like, I don't know, the internet, for lack of a better word for it, it's very abstract in prose.
Yeah.
You know, so in your mind, like, we probably all have very different ideas about, like, what does this space look like that they're describing? If you can create some of that confusion visually, in a way, you're keeping with the literary theme of cyberpunk.
It's true. That's 4 of the top 5.
4 of the top 5.
Let's round it out, man. Hard boiled.
You know, when I said that Akira is almost like a lot of these books are almost like a shared world.
Yes.
Couldn't you imagine Hard Boiled happening in America almost concurrently with the events in Akira? Like,
Totally.
This is also America, and it's like weird post-dystopian future.
You got the high tech Jeff Darrow self-portrait right there.
This is one of the greatest images in my life.
I think this is like one of the pieces that, like, when Frank Miller saw it, he like had to rewrite the whole gimmick.
I stared and stared and stared at these pages.
Yes.
Like, this sequence just, I'd never seen anything like it in my life ever.
An
I
image-
still haven't.
An image like this is as cyberpunk as you can get, man. You got your pipes, you got your wire work, man, but then you have this, like, subterranean culture of hedonism.
Oh, yeah.
Look at the fashions.
It's internet porn in person combined with violence. Yeah, this is the whole show.
Real Decker kind of character in Nixon.
Giant discrepancy between your elite, you know, this fat elite, versus like the people on the streets and in those sex performers and stuff.
Yeah, that's another good piece of cyberpunk, certainly. And before, you know, Moore's law caught up to the everyman, there were dividing lines, man. Very few people could afford a $6,000 computer and a, you know, $2,000 modem.
Absolutely.
Still keeping a little Art Deco. You know, there's a vintage component to cyberpunk also, where you reappropriate some old school stuff, even if it is just a trench coat. You know, you have your futuristic, all this other stuff, but then you got your roots in the 20th century somewhere.
It's your classic pulp hero, you know, wearing that trench coat and walking through the shadowy alleys of the street, you know, the dirty streets that he's operating on.
I've been the impetus for this video, man. I sort of modded a PlayStation Classic and added all kinds of games and things. I was playing Hideo Kojima's Snatcher, which is like a graphic novel. Like, it's barely a game. You're following these characters do stuff, and you're just investigating, like, those, you know, point and click adventures. And it's all those tropes. It got me thinking about cyberpunk and cyberpunk's relation to comics, and how it's such a visual genre. It's really fascinating that it was sort of at its height in literary fiction, you know, like the novels and stuff really pushed it forward, but there's so much to look at when you find a good piece of cyberpunk artwork, comics, movies.
Yeah, and another thing that Hard Boiled does, it continues that trend of the world.
Yeah.
You know, because parts of this do, like you talk about the trench coat, you know, parts of it do resemble 20th century or you know, a very tactile experience.
Yeah.
But you look at this and you look at the cars and it's like, oh yeah, we are in this other world.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, man, it feels more like a fake world with those cars and those designs than a reality. You know, like, we're kind of in that cyberspace whenever you're reading Hard Boiled. Like,
The
look
big
at that.
reveal. We have a video on Hard Boiled on the channel as well. So that was our top 5, but we got some runners up.
Absolutely. One of my favorite characters is Deathlock.
Sure.
And it's funny because I've never connected with a Deathlock story.
Yeah.
Exactly. But it's this violent post-apocalyptic. Rich Buckler is your artist who is, I think, most associated. I flagged a couple of images that I feel really look like the cyberpunk kind of ideal. But I mean, the story is our guy working on a weapon, working on cutting-edge technology for weapons, doesn't even realize it's weapons. And of course, what happens when he decides that he's going to be a whistleblower? He wakes up inside of the body of the cyborg that he's been working on. You know, so now you've got him with a running dialogue between his voice and the computer voice. And occasionally a third voice that comes in that's trying to control him. you know, to me, it feels very much in line with the themes of cyberpunk. Very early on, though, I think the first appearance is 1974.
Look at Rich Buckler stretching too, man, doing some things.
There's some cool art in here. He's finished in a few of these by Klaus Janson, who sometimes does ink and color. This one, I think, is 4 or 5 artists. This is towards the end, just kind of wrapping things up. But it still has these moments of, like, once again, you know, this idea of transferring your brain into the machine.
I mean, that's Ghost in the Shell.
Exactly. But a little bit of a different interpretation, a little bit less of that high-tech sci-fi future version. And whenever I start reading, this is early 90s now, Joe Jusko with just a killer cover. Look at that cover compared to I thought there's some resemblance, right? We've got Deathlock pulling the gun out, a little bit of resemblance concept-wise, but this is what it looks like 20 years later in comic book art.
I bought this comic when I was so young, probably a little after it came out, because I got it on the secondhand market at this like little used bookstore. When I read this thing, man, I believed. I really felt for our guy.
Scott Williams on inks, and you'll see his very, very precise, you know, it's the inks that we know Scott Williams for.
Yeah.
Very sharp inks, but over, is it Jackson Geis, I think, is your artist?
Yes, sir.
So, you know, a little bit of a different pencil line under there, and the coloring's very strange. Must be a blue line color method. Looks
For
painted.
sure.
Occasionally a little bit of airbrush on some of the armored parts, which I think pays off nicely.
I was going to say, when you got the airbrush, man, you can't have Paul Mouse's name too far from the game.
There you go.
He was the guy doing the color and all those like Marvel cards and shit back in the day. And then these were our number ones, man. When we were kids, it was like Darkhawk #1, Deathlock #1, New Warriors.
Note the wires, right?
Oh, yeah.
Gotta have wires if you're gonna do cyberpunk. Mike Manley inking over Dennis Cohen. I like both of those guys, but the last 2 covers that I brought of his, they're inked by Kent Williams. So it's Dennis Cohen with Kent Williams.
Yes.
And you gotta pump your cells up. You know, you do your 2-part guest star, and it was often Punisher or Wolverine at this time. Man, those guys, they would reunite on, I think it's called Fight for Tomorrow, a Vertigo book in the future. It even has a David Cho cover on one of the issues. But man, it's such a different interpretation of Dennis Cohen pencils. I really used to love that whenever you get like an expressive inker that would come on and you get to see a penciler you liked, but
Totally.
almost through a different set of eyes.
Let's round things out, man, with a tried and true classic that could be controversial to the channel, man.
You think?
Weapon X, is it cyberpunk? With all the things that we laid out, is it cyberpunk? I'm very happy to put it in this genre, but maybe you have other thoughts and theories.
I don't know how you look at something like that and don't see it.
Both pieces, like you got your dude at the home, like with like a leaky sink, and,
Even a little bit of neon in your background, neon signage.
yeah, it feels Blade Runner-ish, and then you got this element to it. Feels very cyberpunk to me. It's less on it's more towards the Marvel in terms of science and things like that. You know, you're just kind of seeing things happen. It's not trying to make an argument for how adamantium works or any of that kind of thing. But aesthetically, it fits.
It's body horror.
That's for sure.
It's that idea of science just changing the low guy, right? In this point, like Logan has no control over what's happening to him. He is a victim of science, technology, possibly, the Defense Department.
Right.
Who knows what? But I mean, if this isn't cyberpunk, I don't know what cyberpunk is.
It's true. Here's the deal, though. I'm in a cyberpunk mood. And these are the first bunches of comics that came to mind. But these are the populist choices, I would imagine. So I'm putting it out to the Kayfabe audience. What are your top cyberpunk comics? And that we here at the Cartoonist Kayfabe Labs are completely agnostic. Comics is comics. So if it's cool manga, if there's something from the French realm of comic book making, let us know what it is, man. Put it in the comments. Because once again, I am in that cyberpunk reading mood, and I'm looking for some new stuff.
Yeah, you were talking French. I'll go one with Italian. Rank Xerox is one that I considered, because they peel his top off of his head and do some work on his brain. And the other one that I didn't think of until you just were talking, Ed, Cybernary. Nick Manabat's flip side of Deathblow. I love that comic, and I wish I would have thought of it. It would have been a great excuse to bring it on the channel. But yeah, I can't wait to see what other people recommend, because it wouldn't surprise me if my favorite cyberpunk comic isn't even represented here.
Well,
because
Jimmy,
it's a big genre.
But check this out, man. Like everything we talked about, we have other videos exploring, and a
cyberpunk playlist is what I hear.
Well, like I'm gonna put those videos in the link below, in the description below. But what I'm saying is, We should have a Cybernary video.
Absolutely.
Good to go?
Yes.
Kayfabers, like, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell. We'll notify you when new vids are available. And we have a Patreon out there. The King Kayfabers who are watching the live stream recording session of our week's worth of videos are benefiting the most from mitigating that kayfabe effect. But if you participate in the Patreon, you're getting videos ahead of everybody. And if you participate at the highest level, you're getting all the videos. Jimmy, what do we have out there, man?
My latest books, Hulk Grand Design, in comic shops, $2.22. Pre-order that or reserve your copy now if you haven't already. I have seen it. I'm happy with it. You're going to love it. Street Angel Deadliest Girl Alive, The Plain Janes, and coming soon, Street Angel Princess of Poverty. Again, pre-order that one now, and you can join me on patreon.com/JimRugg, where you can see more of my comics in progress and download out-of-print zines and mini-comics. And I got one more maybe cyberpunk question. Judge Dredd?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That crossed my mind this morning, actually. Red Room Crypto Killers 1 is being solicited in previews right now. Murder on the Dark Web for Fun and Profit is the name of the game. There's not going to be a Red Room trade paperback for Crypto Killers in 2023. So get your hands on these Red Room comics. Give them a read. Let me know what you think. Support the comics. I have 2 trade paperbacks of Red Room out there in the wild right now. Each of these comics is self-contained. So each of the trades has 4 complete stories. I have the perennial seller is Hip Hop Family Tree, 4 volumes of that. It's a 10-year anniversary of Hip Hop Family Tree, so check those comics out. X-Men Grand Design, and you might find the occasional WYSIWYG out there in the wild. Support the books, keep these videos rocking. I have a link tree in the description below where you can get to all that stuff. What else do we have out there, Jimmy?
Aeon Flux is a perfect psychedelic cyberpunk, and we've got a video with Peter Chung. We're going to have a good playlist out of this, Ed. Everybody else, subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe e-newsletter at the links below this video. You can also find Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts, merchandise, mugs, hats, fanny packs, and more at our spread shop. That link is also below this video.
Great way to support the channel. Give them those marching orders. We'll be on our way.
Read more comics. Yeah, cyberpunk's a fun topic.
Yeah.
Very, very fun.
Yeah, good stuff.
Somebody in the chat room asked, how did we learn Star Scrunch? How did we learn about the Adobe thing? Larry Young, the publisher, I saw him talking about it on Facebook. And so that was from Larry Young's mouth, or typing, that I saw that mention. And, you know, as a fan of Shatter, whenever I'd see like a publisher or something talk about it, you know, I pay attention. So that's how I saw that one. What is up next?
I guess we use your iPad.
All right.
I see this video being pretty quick, because we should get a paper copy and do the full Monty.
Yeah, especially as it gets closer.
Yeah. So guys, we have Don Simpson decided to complete the 1963 annual. And we're taking a look at that.
I don't know the best way to do this.
We've done this a million times. Well, maybe not a million, but we've done it plenty.
What is that circle?
Yeah, I don't know. Actually, I don't like that. All right.
All right, you ready?
Yes, sir. Welcome to Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Ed Piskor.
I'm Jim Rugg.
We're going to be taking a look at the complete 1963 annual that was promised to us for 30 years.
Yes.
Has been completed by one of the 1963ers, by the way. But first, got to let you guys know about the Patreon that we have. You could support the channel in a big way and mitigate the kayfabe effect by supporting the Patreon. You will get delivered videos ahead of time, and if you Depending on your level of support, you're getting all the videos before anybody, and you are watching us on a live stream as we are recording these videos. The videos are brought to you by the comic books that we make, and you are seeing a complete bibliography of what we have out there on the stands today. Red Room comics are my focus right now. Crypto Killers is being solicited in stores right now. Go to your shop, put in a pre-order for those. It's not getting a trade paperback in 2023, so you got to get those issues. Hulk Grand Design is getting that Treasury Edition format, so put in your order for that because there is a finite amount of copies, man. Took a lot of toil to get that thing printed just the way Jimmy wanted, man. So you get a special object, and don't come crying if you missed out. No FOMO. Hip Hop Family Tree, Street Angel. You see our bibliographies. Support the books. You'll be supporting the channel. And without further ado, man, Don Simpson has taken it upon himself to do a 1963 annual that is a Gordian knot.
Great description.
Of parody and satire about comics, because this is getting a real publication. This is getting a publication from a real publisher. To leave it up to Don to put out that announcement, but you can't have it put out by a real publisher if you're using characters that you don't necessarily have copyright to.
Yeah, this is a fascinating book in a lot of ways. The first thing, and we've talked about this quite a bit, Don Simpson's level of craft is phenomenal off the charts.
Absolutely.
And so that's the first thing that I find striking. We've seen him at a couple of shows recently where he would have these works in progress. He's been sharing them on Facebook. So you started to see this kind of coming together in pieces. And, you know, as you can see on screen, really remarkable what he does with black and white ink, with lettering. What you
can also see is that he's cutting some promos on Alan Moore here. And Uncle Alan, he's getting a lot of tarnish in recent years because people are starting to ask the question, okay, so like let's say Watchmen comes back into his copyright after DC does their first round, like he thought was going to be done. Like let's say that happens. Do we ever see another Watchmen comic ever again? Big Numbers is a comic that Alan Moore is co-owner of. I bet Bill Sienkiewicz wouldn't be upset if it was easily available. Small Killing, you got to dig deep to find that one. That's not still in circulation. That's a comic that Alan Moore has copyright to. Brought to Light, at least half of that is under his ownership. You don't see that anymore. So what would have happened with Watchmen? He's owns a bunch of stuff that he's not putting out. There's a lot of conversation about that, and it's that it's the, in kayfabe terms, it's the great conundrum of tag teams, right? Like if Marty Jannetty has a bum wing, so that stops Shawn Michaels from making money.
Yeah, it's wow, that's a lot of ground to cover, Ed. Yeah, it's a fascinating question, and there's all kinds of stuff that goes into this. I think Alan Moore removed his name from Pictopia, which was a comic he and Don Simpson had done. So there's probably quite a bit of reason for animosity, but there's also a lot more in here because this references things like Splitting Image, which Don had done early in Image's tenure. So you get a little bit of that. I think it's referred to as Splitting Image even throughout here.
Well, he owns that.
Yes. It has Megaton Man universe stuff that goes back to Don cutting promos on mainstream comics in the 80s. Sure. So there, as you say, Gordian Knot is a great description because, man, there's comics history is on every page here.
Well, here it is also, man. So the 1963 characters are playing off of the Silver Age famous Marvel characters. You got your Fantastic Fours. You got your Spider-Man character in the Fury. You got your what was the USA dude called, man?
U.S. Agent?
No, that's a Marvel character for real.
Yeah, you're right. What is that guy?
Yeah, but there's a Captain America type character. There's a Thor type character.
Doctor Strange.
So like, you can't use any of those characters that are already parodies of existing characters. So Don has to create parody characters of real, tried and true Marvel trademarks. So that therein lies your Gordian knot. He does call him U.S. Agent, born in the U.S. Agent. And there will be a lot of, like, cheeky shits like here. I know I'm a patriotic guy, yet I feel strangely outlandish, like a mashup of Yankee tropes some foreigner might toss together.
That's pretty good.
Putting shots out there.
Yeah, very fun.
Here's his fantastic
Dr. Ugg is a real fun name. You know, it's funny to think of, like, what you have to do to make parodies of parodies.
Right.
Just coming up with names that work. A challenge. I love the design of this character with the 4 legs.
It's very disturbing.
It is really disturbing, but also it highlights some of Don's figure drawing ability.
Amazing figure artist.
Like, it doesn't work if you're not good at a figure drawing. It's just a weird character otherwise.
I checked out his sketchbooks before, like when the Crumb Biennial was coming to town, and we were checking out that show. He was there, and he just had his sketchbook armed with them. I think he teaches either cartooning or, like, does do life drawing stuff. And so many pages, just the figure twisted up in every angle. Like he knows how everything lays in 3D, and he doesn't fake anything.
No, and man, speaking of his abilities, like the lettering, how gorgeous is this for a mock cover or a splash page?
The fun stuff about getting this early piece, and it might not be so visible on the video, but we get to see kind of like the work underneath the ink line, and you get to see how he builds his lettering and all that. Very instructive, like very thankful. He just sent this email to us, man. We've been seeing the pages in development over the past year and a half, and to get the full Monty, just fantastic.
He also, I think, has done well in keeping records of this stuff. Like, sure. I think he has scans of the pencils or the blue lines, you know, like all the steps along the way. And with some of the stuff we've looked at, you know, like make your own artist edition kind of bootlegs and things like that, it makes me think like he could have some real fun producing a book of this because he's got all these steps along the way.
Yeah, continuing with the Gordian knot of parody, he's now exploring like Alan Moore tropes within his work, the Lovecraftian bits, you know, like the Providence and all that.
It's a great character name again, the psychic squid with PSQUID. Sure, it's so comic perfect.
It is. And then the Pictopia comic, which we still have not done a video on.
Is that true?
And we absolutely need to amend that. We need to fix that.
We need
That's
to
like
look at
one
that.
of the most important comics of the 80s in terms of deconstruction, before Watchmen, before Dark Knight.
And I feel like we've referenced it a dozen times.
Plenty of times. So it's kind of operating within that headspace.
Yes. Yeah, this is a comic book fan's comic in a lot of ways. It's almost a literary comic in terms of the layers of reference that are put together.
It's going to take a couple readings to get it all. There's no doubt. And how perfect too, right? That like the original stuff is 1963. You know, Marvel Comics from 63. 30 years go by. Then in 1993, Alan Moore and all these artists get together, and Don Simpson was a part of that. He was a letterer, inked a couple pieces. They do their kind of homage, and now Don Simpson, 30 years after 1993, which how old does that fucking make you feel, getting those comics when they're new and shit?
100%. I think of that a lot. I'm glad you bring that up.
And so we're 30 years removed from that, and we now have this amazing document from a master cartoonist.
Even the dumb, like the chapter 0, yeah. I feel like is a perfect spot-on detail to put in this.
Now, we have our continuation piece from the last issue of 1963, where the big reveal is that like ghastly Rick Veitch, what's his name? Shaft.
Yeah, the 90s.
The reveal that the 1963 characters are catching up with the 1993 characters. If that's what you were hoping for, if you were hoping for Don Simpson to just do Jim Lee parody like the whole time, you're not getting that in this annual. He's going his own direction, but you're at least getting the acknowledgement of where that stuff was going to go. And a lot of the thesis in this thing is it didn't progress because the writer, non-affable Al or whatever they call him, just has no idea how to write his way out the paper bag. I don't know that that's the truth. I don't know that that's fair. Like Jim Valentino says he has the complete synopsis or script to how that was going to wrap up or something.
I love that. Like, I was reading this and I was thinking about that and thinking, like, is this what great creators do? Where they maybe don't have everything laid out. Like, it forces them to be creative and figure out the solutions. You know, like, it's great to do that setup that's amazing. And, like, everybody wanted that annual whenever you saw that last page.
Sure.
And so, like, if you don't know exactly where you're going, is that a creative methodology?
A lot of guys will, they propose that. David Mamet proposes that.
Yeah.
Aaron Sorkin proposes that. If you put your character into a bind, like everybody can write a great first act is what they say. Everybody can do a great first act. Put your character in a bind that you have no idea how they're going to get out of it, because if you don't know how they're going to get out of it, the audience doesn't know.
Yes.
And that keeps them into the mix.
I see that a lot in, like, television
Say it,
seasons
Jim.
at the end.
I know you want to say it.
Silhouette zine, I absolutely love this. Obviously a spread, and I love all these characters in Silhouette. One more skill set I guess Dawn shows off, the ability to design characters because they look great in Silhouette. Yeah, that's
iconic.
hilarious. That's a great one, but so's the center spread guy who's like the energy piece, you know? It's so much. It's amazing how good that works, the silhouettes.
Now, you know Jim Valentino, they're homies. Back in the days of old Valentino, Aardvark Vanaheim shits, man. So you got to have... This is a very Guido Valentino.
You know,
Very greasy, very swarthy.
More proof that we're living in the Matrix is this is not the only Valentino caricature I received this week.
It's true. And maybe not the only video that is going to be out in the world.
Man, ridiculous.
Parodying Image Founding Fathers even.
And referencing Splitting Image.
Yes.
Layers on layers, Ed.
You know, like, there is a continuity to the channel. Like, I implore everybody, like, if you got... Hey, man, like... Didn't we all used to watch a half hour of TV every day? Watch a half hour of Cartoonist Kayfabe every day. You're going to follow the continuity.
And here we go back now to really Splitting Image, where now we're bringing these characters from Splitting Image back into this comic.
Yeah.
I do love that it's 30 those 30-year gaps.
Oh, my goodness, man. Fritz the Cat died for your sins. That's so funny.
Unbelievable.
Do you think that Don Simpson has in mind the jobbers who these guys are?
That's a good question, and we were going to have to ask him.
Yes.
Because at some point, we're going to sit down with Don, fellow Pittsburgher, and talk comics.
It's true, man. So there's Affable out on his own self-imposed crucifix.
It's really interesting because, yes, but also you're connecting the idea of mythology, of superheroes, with the idea of religion in the mythologies of our past. Like, there's a lot here.
Yep. And straight from Kirby's mouth, he talks that stuff. So Affable Al is going to go off and go write this last annual. He uses one of the Bizarre Hero characters, man, that was there towards like the sort of final issues. I own 100% of Don Simpson's bibliography, man. I have everything, man. So I was... Bizarre Heroes was on my pull list, man, whenever I was a kid in the 90s, man. Certainly knowing that he was a Pittsburgh cat, it's like, yeah, let me read the Pittsburgh guy's comic.
Who's this duck?
It is a Bizarre Hero character. I don't have his name.
He reminds me so much of Dan and Larry.
Yeah.
And looking at it, I kept thinking, like, am I missing who this is? And it's probably a reference to Howard the Duck, maybe?
Sure.
Like when he does Bizarre Heroes, is like bringing in some of those character archetypes.
Of course. And isn't it amazing? Like, so this is the Thing parody guy who Rick Veitch's dude is like that moon-headed...
Yeah, the planet.
So yeah, that's the name. And so, you know, just like... adding layers onto it to create even more parody.
You can almost imagine that's a real character like the Thing that goes through rock mutations.
Yeah.
Like this is another cartoonist interpreting him.
You see a piece like that with the eye, and it's like, is that Charles Burns? That type of shit? You know, it's like that got that same chunky line. I always like associated their ink line.
Yeah.
You know, the final approach is different.
Do you know if Don plans to color this? Because
don't
it
know.
looks really good in black and white. And,
Yeah.
And I don't know whether it's planned for color or not. But,
Yeah.
it feels like it lends itself to color based on the subject.
Take it things to Pictopia, and once again, people, it is going to be getting a printed book. So stay tuned, and we'll promote that because I have a feeling that that's going to go pretty quick whenever it comes out, man. Like it's going to go pretty freaking quick. You recognize that guy from the Pete Poplawski colored Pictopia book whenever, you know, the new era, or was this oh, of course. Here. I have no idea what happened there.
Yeah, I don't know.
We've seen
This
these characters
also,
before.
I feel like it also works really well with the conceit of the original 1963, that it was going to go to the 90s where it was like Image guns and stuff. Even with the Pictopia reference, like it just fits. Like those things, it's in some ways delivering the promise of the original annual. And is John Byrne's X-Men where else? Elsewhere, I think is the name of the John. Elsewhen. It's crazy again. Like you think of like people doing fan fiction, but fan fiction that's widely read, and now we've got Elsewhen and When Else, and it's both like
and by the way, like that's a choice. Like he's calling out the John Byrne stuff.
right.
So many splash pages, which is a very Image 1990s kind of trope. So like
I can't even get by like epic and variant covers. Like it is just every single thing you could think of is in here.
Yeah. With great facility, once again,
Yes.
man. Like just understanding the shapes and everything. Everything that he draws, like it has a logic to him. Got to get the zombies in. You know, those are the afterthought of Image comics.
It's what was missing in Splitting Image, right?
That's true.
Who knew?
But there it is, man. The completed. Oh yeah, right.
Now we go into Golden Age.
public domain.
Phantoma and Stardust, like
And cutting promos on the guys who are taking this old material and doing, you know, their ersatz version with creative freedom and stuff, and you know, talking about every would-be auteur hack, every amateur hack violating us. You call that freedom? You know, like
right.
Don Simpson is putting it out there, man.
Yeah, it's incredible. We're about halfway through. There's 63 pages total in this, plus like an epilogue that goes ahead. But the 63 pages, another one of those really, in my opinion, smart choices.
Right.
It's an interesting project. Having the reference to the old X-Men cover,
Sure.
the classic cover. It's just such an ambitious idea. Like it feels like if you were going to reverse engineer this, it is really putting down every concept you've got and then figuring out how to work this in.
Once again, taking a look at his actual art. I don't know how well it's showing up on the screen, but seeing how he uses that like little like correction tape.
Yep.
And then letters on top of it.
Really like his lettering.
Yeah, he would get Harvey Awards and Eisner nominations and things for his lettering acumen, probably from around this time. You know, the 1963 era.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. It's amazing that hasn't lost any of that in 30 years.
Here's the thing where, like, you know, Don Simpson, he's on public record, like, talking at smack and stuff. He has his grievances, you know, like, with Alan Moore. But he keeps up because, like, I've got to resume my feud with J.K. Rowling. Like, that stuff is in League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. So Don's keeping up, man.
That's funny.
He's reading the work.
That's what makes for a good parody.
And then let's tie the Gordian knot even further, because Don Simpson has his own Fantastic Four parody characters, and this is Yarn Man. Like, he is the Thing of his quintet, his quartet, fighting the Thing of the Mystery Incorporated, but not the Rick Veitch, Alan Moore. It's the parody of the parody, and then he's got a parody. It's so deep.
Yes.
And how he kept it all straight in his melon. He is a PhD. He is a doctor.
It feels really weird to say this, but I feel like a companion reading piece is Strange Death of Alex Raymond.
Sure.
There's
Because
just so much
it's that
analysis
comic stuff,
of like
yeah.
comics history and minutia and inside info.
There's a pouch on the back of Statue of Liberty's head.
Yeah, it's wild stuff.
Oh, this little bit. More violence, finally. Yippee. In the mighty Simpson manner. And then don't have a cowabunga. There's a lot of this stuff where there's references to publishers, cartoonists, methods.
Feels very Mad Magazine to me in terms of how much reference you can get in there. And very Simpsons for that matter.
Totally. Simpson, not Simpsons, dude.
Yeah, that's great. It's great stuff. It's a big project too. Like, it is something I'm curious to talk to Don about in terms of how long he works on a project like this.
Yeah. Fantastic. Can't wait for that final printed version to come out, and we're going to have to reinvestigate that once again. Maybe. Oh, yeah, and now let's bring Big Bang characters into the mixture with permission. You know, like he has the shouts to Tom King and all that. The Night Watchman, which is a parody of Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen.
Yeah,
it's wrapped up in one character.
Whole nother publishing house of parody. Yeah, it's really wild. It's that fanboy, you know, it's playing to a certain fanboy element.
Yeah.
And it's Easter egg on Easter egg.
Right. Totally built for a cartoonist kayfabe, you know, patron, a viewer, somebody who's that deep, who knows that 90s stuff.
It feels
who knows
like
the Silver Age stuff.
If you put cartoonist kayfabe into the AI, this might be what comes out. I mean, Eternity? Come on! Like, Valiant reference? What isn't in here?
Right. And that's the thing. Simpson's career spans all of that.
Yeah, you know, he's got some interesting projects coming up. I would say in the meantime, you know, if you're a fan, look for Don because he does a lot of shows. And he'll bring this artwork, you know, first time I saw some of this stuff was at Baltimore.
Yeah.
We were flipping through his portfolio, talking to him about it. It was in progress, so he's a good guy to run down if you actually see him in person because he'll have some cool stuff to show off. He'll have some works in progress. He'll probably be doing commissions. A lot of fun if you actually run into him at a show. So seek him out. He does a lot of shows, and man, his output, it's almost like I don't know, a renaissance or something for him in terms of just he is working a lot because I see tons of artwork coming up on his feed.
Now we're taking a look at the Don Simpson approach to the 1963 annual. But if you do your approach to the 1963 annual in your own bootleg fashion, you got to send that to the Cartoonist Kayfabe Studios, man. I do think that Steve Bissett, stickler for trademark, copyright, all that stuff, reach out to him, get permission to use his characters because he expressed that
yes,
he's going to have to sue your ass or something like that if he finds out that you're putting something together. But reach out, do that. He's been making handshake deals with people. Can't say that he's going to do that for you, but maybe. And send us your 1963 annual that resolves the exact stuff from Alan Moore and the Boys, because I'm going to read that comic also.
Absolutely. And by the way, a little update on Bissett. I just saw him posting about sending a big chunk of art because he's been working on 1963 stuff for years, including an official Don Simpson 1963 story, and he just sent a batch of that off to the publisher. So I think that may be seeing light of day coming soon. So maybe it's a 1963 Assance is what we're in the midst of here, Ed.
30 years after. We're seeing a cycle develop, man. Kayfabers, like, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell so we can notify you when new vids are available. And we have a Patreon where people are watching us stream this recording session live. They're getting a jump on the Kayfabe effect before anybody else. And the patron subscription pays for itself. When there's one book that we put out there that you want, that costs too much by the time you see the video, man. So hit our Patreon in the description below this video. And Jim, tell the people what books you got out there, man.
Hulk Grand Design coming out February 22nd. Pre-order that or reserve your copy today if you haven't already, because once that's out of print, it may be a while before you see it again. Street Angel Deadliest Girl Alive, Plain Jane's, both available now. Street Angel Princess of Poverty available for pre-order, coming out later this year. And join me on patreon.com/JimRugg, where you can see more of my comics and art, and you can download out-of-print zines and minis there.
We are soliciting the next round of Red Room comics today. Go to your local comic shop, put in your pre-order for Red Room Crypto Killers, issue number 1. Another 4-issue round of Red Room comics going to come out this year in 2023. 2 Red Room trades are out there right now, Antisocial Network and Trigger Warnings. Hip Hop Family Tree is the bestseller. 10-year anniversary in 2023 for Hip Hop Family Tree. So scoop up those books, support that comic, X-Men Grand Design, and WYSIWYG. These videos are brought to you by the comic books that we make, so support the books. We keep these videos rocking. Jimmy, tell the people what else we have out there, man.
Subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe newsletter at the links below this video. You can also find Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts, merchandise, mugs, fanny packs, and more at our spread shop. That link is also below this video.
Another great way to support the channel. Given those marching orders will be on our way, Jim.
Make more comics.
Boom.
I should have recorded that video, Ed. You're going to have to send me one.
You're
going to have to send me one of the videos.
No. You'll do Contraband. You'll do
Hulk.
Your Thing.
Yep.
And then
Voodoo Child.
And then you'll do TMNT.
Okay.
Yeah, because like, that's the other thing. I don't know if I put that in the thing, guys, but like, we're doing 2 vids with Pete. We're going to go through Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1. And we're going to do the shoot interview.
What's our time?
9:27, Jimmy.
We got lots of time.
Yeah, let's try to rock these
Three
things.
videos, 20 minutes a pop.
And then like we'll set up, and then I'll email Peter again. No, I mean I'll text him again and just be like, dude, are you good to go? Because I would love to have max time with him.
Definitely. I think that 63 went well. I think that's a good conversation for that book because
The thumbnail, I imagine putting the covers for the original and just saying like it's been completed.
that's it.
And,
It's
like,
the
that's
1963 annual.
Yeah.
I do look forward to talking to Don. I think he's gonna have some fun. A lot to talk about. That guy's been working, man. So I don't want to show everything in this.
Yeah, of course. You do what you do, man.
This is one of my favorite pages.
Yeah, it's amazing. That one's for the Wham guy.
Yeah. The Bawam.
Good to go.
Yeah.
All right, ready?
Yep. Hello and welcome to Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Jim Rugg.
I'm Ed Piscor.
First things first, we have a Patreon, and the King Kayfaber level is currently watching us record these videos and talking with us in our chat. So want to encourage everybody to check out that Patreon. It's been really fun building out this community, and that is one more level where you get access to videos early, you get access to us while we're recording, and it's just one more way to support Cartoonist Kayfabe. The other great way to support Cartoonist Kayfabe is to buy our books, and you can see our bibliography highlighted here on your screen right now. Ed Piscor's Red Room, Hip Hop Family Tree, X-Men Grand Design, WYSIWYG, all out and available now with some new books coming out this year in some of those book title families. Also, you can pick up Plain Jane's Street Angel and February 22nd, Hulk Grand Design.
Congratulations, Jimmy.
Thank you very much. I'm so excited to be part of the Grand Design family of books. And I just got my advanced copy this week, so first thing I got to record, Ed, is send it out to the Cartoonist Kayfabe faithful out there.
That's right.
Give them a preview of what is coming to their comic shops in case they haven't pre-ordered this book already, because they're printed now. They're not making any more of these things, and the book was delayed because printing is a challenge right now. So I encourage everybody, if you want a Kayfabe effective book, this may be it. So pre-order this one or reserve this at your local comic shop while there are still copies available. Ed, I did a couple of different things with this, basically inspired by the other Grand Design books, trying to keep up with what you guys had already done, you and Tom Scioli. And the very first thing I did, you both had spot varnishes. I opted for a fluorescent green ink on my cover.
Looks great, too.
It's going to pop. You know, no doubt about it to me. If you put this on the shelf at the comic book store, to all the comic shop owners out there supporting us, should stand out. Should be able to see this one from the street. And you also, one of the features in Grand Design that you established from the very get-go is reprinting some classic artwork featuring those characters. In my case, I kind of did a mix of some different artists, because one of my favorite parts of the Hulk is how different he looks from artist to artist.
Right.
And so some of the gallery inclusions in this collection: Jack Kirby, Todd McFarlane, Frank Miller, Neil Adams, Art Adams, Steranko, Corbin, Eric Larson, and more. So we're going to have a really nice reprint selection in here as well. And I'm not going to go through this book page by page today, but I do want to highlight some of the parts that I'm most proud of. And one of the things in my proposal was I wanted to make the best Hulk book ever. That was my goal with Grand Design. And as I've been saying, man, put up your choice for the best Hulk book ever, and let's put them next to each other and see what we think. So, you know, one of the first things that I do is I want it visual. I want a visual just onslaught of your eyeballs. And you guys, you and Tom Scioli have some beautiful end pages. I had to figure out something to do on my end pages.
Hulk is big, man. So you're never going to get a bigger Hulk head than that.
Absolutely. And I don't know if we'll ever see a Grand Design artist edition or not. Again, get that petition going. Let IDW know you want one. But in case that doesn't happen, these are 100% of the original art.
Sick.
So the original art is a little bit bigger, but it's kind of the bleeds and stuff. If you actually saw my original pages of the cover art, this is the size that they are at. So,
and it's a color scan. I see brush strokes. And,
some
and,
blue
line
sticking out underneath.
Smart.
So I figure, man, got to use every page, use every part of the book.
That's
and,
it.
If that doesn't set a tone, I don't know what would.
I remember like our very first conversations together, like whenever on day one of hanging out on Wednesday, you know, down in Oakland, you're talking like, I want to do like an Aphrodisiac Treasury edition. And we were all in this idea of like, man, we got to get our Treasury edition. Like, how cool would it be to have a canvas that big, to make a comic that big, blah, blah, blah. And one by one, dude, put our treasuries together.
It's wild, isn't it?
It is.
Feels like The Secret, you know? We start talking about it and it's manifested itself.
There's that proto video where we went to the proto Kayfabe, where we went to New Dimension, and like before Hip Hop 1 comes out, like I'm digging in the boxes and pulling out that Fantastic Four treasury, and I'm like, dude, I want to print my thing this size. And Tom Scioli's like, Ed, I think you're the only guy so far who has twisted a publisher's arm to print a Treasury edition. We have our Treasury editions now, man.
Well done, Ed. I feel like you weakened their arm with that twisting.
That's it.
It's really setting it up for the rest of us.
You know,
and for fandom, by the way, because who benefits from a book that looks good?
And then, of course, there's the Peach books, the Trad Moore joints. Yes. Like there are other books this size. And then, like, you know, DMC made his superhero comic, and it's Hip Hop Family Tree size.
You got to, man. You got to do it. It's too good not to. If that option is available, you got to do it. Here's a nod to your choices, Ed, is putting together covers. So one of the features that I used as a design element is I put together all the pages of all the Hulk covers that are in this book and use them as like chapter breaks. In this case, is like a title page. Also gotta love like having my name that big.
By the way, this is the thumbnail, I feel like.
Yeah, it might be. It might be. But again, it's just a graphic assault, you know, like you can do a title page as one page. Why not do it as a spread? Nobody stopped me from this.
Hulk is big, so like the bigger you go, you're just keeping with the theme and the sort of tropes of the character.
Yeah. And then Jack Kirby starts it all.
Yes, sir.
There's a handful of cover scans along these lines. This one is, you know, approximately at actual size. an anonymous collector that I got the scan from, so I don't want to tip that out. I don't have a Hulk #1
Sure.
to scan myself, and didn't get my hands on one to scan, but do appreciate he knows who he is that helped me out with this. But I thought it's a great way to kind of like set this up, because this is essentially the biography of the Incredible Hulk.
Totally, and you gotta use that, because like if you got the Marvel file, it's that like ugly color that we push against always, man. So like I did the same thing. Like I went to Giant Size X-Men. In one of our videos, I told the story about procuring that,
Yes.
and leaving it at a Thai restaurant, I believe.
You can only say that after you don't plan on borrowing anyone else's high-end comics.
Well, I didn't, but it wasn't me who left it.
That's fair. This is an actual scan. You know, like I've talked a lot about Chip Kidd and his influence on my work, and he would photograph a lot of very close-ups of comic books in print, and I just love that aesthetic. Sometimes I try to duplicate that kind of like, get that texture in there or get the dot patterns in. But in this case, I had a copy of the actual ad in my collection. So you just scan that thing at like 2000 DPI, and you get all those little printing inaccuracies, the imperfections of the paper and stuff. And I don't note this, but one of the first licensed, or I don't know if they're licensed, I guess Marvel wasn't producing them themselves, but this Incredible Hulk sweatshirt is one of those early items that Marvel really starts, selling their characters in these different ways. And so that ad ran through a lot of comics of that time period.
I feel like right here, like you should just show the back page.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, that's a good call.
Because people will
How
start to
about that?
forget.
Speaking of trying to duplicate that process, so you can see my version of it here.
But look at it, this is genius. Like,
there's your wrap up of the book. Right?
Yeah, and it was the one shirt that had screen print on the back from that run of shirts. Those were some sexy fucking designs. Like the X-Men. It's the best X-Men that Jack Kirby ever drew, where there's like the little circle design. Like I put that in the book also. But like that's just such a smart choice, Jimmy.
It's such an iconic image, and I did a drawing of it first. I was just going to draw it and put it in there because I thought that's a cool way to bookend coming and going. And then whenever I found the ad, it's like the ad's so much better than, as close as you might be able to get. The ad's so much better. Use the original source material. And you can even see, like, from the page, the blow up of what else was on that page.
This is the best designed Marvel comic ever, dude.
So, we're still like, this is, oh yeah, by the way, shop owners, if this comes in plastic, man, rip that plastic off. Because it's designed to sell the book. Let them flip through a couple of pages and see if they get sucked into this thing. All the cover box images I use as much as possible. You see it on the back cover, but then also in these chapter breaks, because I love these cover boxes.
Yeah, this was like a year run, right?
Yeah.
From January to December.
Every issue they would update it a little bit.
How genius, right?
Really a kind of a cool piece of comics history there as it goes along. You did these title pages, Ed.
Based on the John Romita
Compliments
stuff.
to the fans, but not easy.
No. I mean, it's John Romita who did the one in that Fantastic Four, and it just it's like you got to do that.
You really do. And then we get awesome cover gallery. So thank you, Ed. And there were a lot of happy accidents putting a book together like this. For example, color. This isn't recording, I don't think.
What the fuck just happened?
I don't know, but it's frozen there on the timer's frozen.
Is it recording still?
It says it's recording.
Yeah.
You think it's good? Do you think we should probably stop it and restart it at the very least?
Yeah, sure. There were some updates. You wanna? Good.
Yeah, I wonder if I should go back and see where this stops. Sorry. Always got to be something. Hello and welcome to Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Jim Ripping, I don't think.
Okay, we're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sucks, man.
Yeah, at least we got it all.
Yeah. You left off with happy accidents.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll just do this spread again.
Yeah. King Kayfabe, everything that we've done today with the recording session and everything, like, you got to be at our session next week also, because we have some other stuff planned with a shoot guest. It's going to blow your fucking minds.
All right, man. So I was trying to figure out, when I put the book together, order of things, things like you got to have the cover art, right? Peach Momoko and your cover of the classic McFarlane update. So, I wanted to make that kind of read, as part of the reading experience. Sure. And again, something I would see in Chip Kid books, where it was almost like the entire, even the editorial content was part of the narrative. And I really wanted to do that. So this is one of those happy accidents where, like, you look at the color palettes, it looks like you two worked together to design this spread.
Right.
It's so perfect. It's even complementary the way, like, your green's up here while her green is on Hulk and She-Hulk. I couldn't have been happier, and it just kind of worked that way.
If only I brought some purple into the mixture.
Yeah, you know what? I was going through this, and I was thinking, like, okay, whenever I sign these books, like, I'm going to change this one panel. I'm going to scribble in this. There should have been a black background here. But Marcos Martin, it's another one of those, like, super. I love the way this spread flows.
Amazing.
And not planned. It's. I think the best art often incorporates these happy accidents.
Yeah.
So kind of cool. And then we get into the story that everybody's familiar with, and again, in the name of just kind of showing a little glimpse of this. Whenever I got my single issues, I would go through, and I don't know how well this shows up, but I would mark things, like change this color a little bit, change this drop shadow, move things around. And so, like, one of the examples was I wanted Silver Surfer. I thought it would read better if it was up here. I didn't want it to look like it was the Hulk talking. So I would just draw directly on one of my mock-up copies and then go through and make those adjustments. So there's a ton of these kind of, like, what I would consider sort of small adjustments along the way. But those small adjustments, this is you get to see it in print, you get to read it, and then maybe you think, you know what, let's do off registration, because he's falling out of this dimension. So let's have our colors just like peeling apart. And if you look, this is purple, right? But as it falls apart, it's like the magenta and the cyan are separating.
Yeah, it's really cool.
So there's a little bit of purple where they overlap, but for the most part, it's like he's just physically being torn apart as he goes through dimensions.
Yeah, it's real smart.
And there's a lot of playing with color. So for this Rocket Raccoon panel, I thought it should pop more. We're going to blow up some of this stuff. And you were the one that was using white as a color.
I was using 100%. Like on the last volume, I was using my old kind of color text, like tropes, but like whenever energy or something was involved, I would just use 100% like magenta computer color.
Yes.
And then you would get this kind of thing to just like really, really be vibrant and pop.
There's so much that can be done like that in color. And I feel like a lot of people don't explore that fully.
You want to use 100% of stuff as much as possible. So like 100% yellow, where there's no dots to make it up. It just makes it so vibrant. It's almost like your fluorescent cover.
That's exactly my note, is like go full blacklight.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a lot of those kinds of small corrections and things. Not a lot from the editorial at this point. Most of their editorial grammar corrections, things like that, were done at the comic book level.
Sure, yeah.
But it was a matter of, like, I didn't know how some of these colors were going to look when they printed, some of these effects. So it would be fine-tuning some of those to really get the best that I could. And then, like, this is possibly my favorite page.
Shouts to Blam.
Totally.
One of the best Instagram profiles one can follow.
Yes, very fun. And again, it's a continued story. So like they would have so many of these in the back of the comics and talk about stuff that's just kind of like lost to history. And I love this stuff. I love the hand lettering.
This is the shit that like we're going to be able to get a Todd Kleinshoot interview after we show him this.
I hope so. This was another one that I think I was really happy to be able to add. Marvel did CD-ROMs in the early 2000s of complete comics, like complete runs of comics that included the ads and the letters pages. So I pulled letters, and some of them are celebrity letters, like Gary Groth. Gary Groth, Eric Reynolds, and Kim Thompson all have published letters in The Incredible Hulk.
Just amazing.
The Fantagraphics, publishers and top of their crew. But there's tons of people that would go on to work. Ralph Macchio, an editor that we talked about recently in a Wizard episode.
Yeah, has a nice house.
Kurt Busiek, Mary Jo Duffy. Ron Fritz Pittsburgh, I think, is Ron Friends.
Interesting.
Because Gary Groth is Gary Groff,
They just
and I asked him
it's
about
probably
it to make sure it was
hand-letter.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. Bud Plant. So it's kind of a who's who, but also interesting letters. Like there's stuff that came up about like coloring process where you get like Marie Severin then in your answer. So I tried to just pull that kind of stuff too.
It's a Hulk comic, and Bret Hart writes a letter.
That's right. We got a Bret Hart represented in here. Same deal with trying to arrange pages and how they work out. I had 2 covers, to show for Hulk Grand Design Madness, but I wanted this to be a right-hand page. Like, okay, we're starting the next chapter in the book. And so you end up with McGinnis on this back cover. But once again, man, kind of a badass spread to lead into the actual comic.
McGinnis is such a good drawer. Dude.
He's very good and big.
I love those thick lines that he'll allow himself to draw.
Yeah, it's really nice to see. I like seeing all these images at this big size. You can see like some of my coloring on Jeff Darrow's pencils. Again, reproducing his pencil art for anybody that wasn't aware of that. I'm so in love with his pencils, and we almost only see his ink line. So whenever I saw this, I was like, let's do the pencils. It'll be something different for Jeff Darrow fans. So again, the next chunk of this then, of course, is what was in the comics. And no reason to rehash all of that. Pick up the book if you haven't already. But that runs through, and then we get into our back matter of the book and some of the bonus stuff. Again, letters from this second section. So the books that are covered in part 2 are what all these letters are from. Very first one, Eric Larson, who would go on to do some of his own Hulk work and Savage Dragon, possibly the greatest Hulk comic.
This is such a cool piece right here.
Yeah, compiled. You had to print your circulation numbers for postal regulation for, all the way up to at least 1998 is whenever I quit. So it's 30 years of number of copies of Hulk issues by average printed each month, number of Hulk comics by average sold each month. And you can see like it's a steady decline until we get to the Hulk TV show. Right. And then we bump back up. So it's another big uptick. Again, in the early 90s, you see where 1992, the biggest numbers on this list, I believe. So you get to see the bubble reflected in this. Yeah, and never came up in editorial as to like maybe not wanting to show that or whatever. They didn't seem to have any problem, and it's in the comics. I'm not pulling that out of anywhere dark.
They don't know what those numbers mean.
But it's one more way to kind of like look at these comics in my mind. Again, if I'm going to do the best Hulk book, I want to represent as much of that Hulk, not just in comics but in real life as possible. A little bit about my background putting this together. The first Hulk drawing I did as part of the proposal, and then notes on all of the artwork that is represented in here. And I tried to go deep, like this is Jim Steranko from Foom, but it also tells this story of like all these different artists really bringing different qualities to the Hulk. So I won't spoil everything that's in here, but do pick that up. And here's one of the backup pieces. Eric Larson doing a What the Hulk that is not a bad version of Grand Design.
Yeah.
Really traces his history and then kind of speculates about his future. Just a fun comic, and getting Eric Larson in here. There's a who's who of, I think, really great artists represented in this. So something to check out for sure. And then got to thank the creators who made me care about the Hulk.
You got to, like that part has to be included, man.
And paying homage to the Hulk drawing by John Romita that got me started, kind of based on the Hulk cup that I would drink orange juice out of whenever I was 6. And this is one side of that cup, and the other side is whenever I pull this origin, that's exactly the origin that's on the back side.
Oh, that's it.
So I would read that thing, man, every day for a year.
Yeah, it's burned into your mind.
That's exactly right, and it meant so much to me. And as we showed, there goes the Hulk at the end of the book, just wrapping it up neatly. Some thank yous, biography, the usual stuff, representing some cartoonist kayfabe out there. And by the way, here's an Easter egg for you. This was shot in the Heroes Aren't Hard to Find warehouse.
Yeah.
Shortly before pandemic began, we were on tour.
We did a video.
Shelton and Seth gave us a tour of their warehouse. I love that stuff so much. And man, talk about comics love. Gotta love the Heroes Aren't Hard to Find guys from Charlotte. And then your final color version of that inside.
Beautiful book, Jimmy. When's it hitting stands?
This will be out February 22nd in stores everywhere. I'll probably be doing a few store appearances. The one that I've got lined up so far is local. That is Phantom of the Attic in Oakland and Pittsburgh. And that'll be February 22nd. So like I say, put it on your pull list, reserve it, pre-order it, whatever you got to do. Because these things go out of print. It may be a while before you see another one.
Yep.
But many thanks to Marvel for making a book that I wanted to make. Like, I've got no complaints. You know, you get these books back, and it's always a matter of, did it work?
Right.
Did everything turn out the way I wanted it to? I'm thrilled to say it did. Thanks to Jen Grunwald, in particular, who worked with me on the book design, the longtime Marvel book specialist, and really helped with a couple questions I had. So I'm thrilled with how it turned out, and I look forward to getting this in the hands of Kayfabers and Hulk fans everywhere.
Congratulations, Jimmy, man. Super proud of the book. I think it's the best book you've designed so far until the next book that you make.
That's right.
Good to go?
I am.
Kayfabers, like, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell. We'll notify you when new vids are available, and we do have a Patreon that you can subscribe to, get all these videos early, completely mitigate that kayfabe effect. But Jimmy, what do you have out there, man?
Hulk Grand Design, as I said, pre-order it now while you still can. Plain Jane's and Street Angel Deadliest Girl Alive are both in print and available. Street Angel Princess of Poverty is the next Street Angel book, and you can pre-order that one now. And join me on my Patreon at patreon.com/JimRugg to see more of my art and download some of my out-of-print zines and mini comics.
Red Room Crypto Killers issue 1 is being solicited at your local comic shop right now. So go to your shop, hit them up, let them know that you want the new Red Room comics. There's not going to be a trade paperback in 2023, so if you want to read the comics, you gotta do it that way. 2 other trade paperbacks of Red Room are out there right now, but every story is self-contained. I'm serializing that new Red Room content on my own Patreon, patreon.com/edpiskor. $3 for the archive for it all, less than a penny a page for all that material. Got a link tree in the description below where you can get to all those destinations. Jimmy, what else do we have out there, man?
Subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe newsletter at the links below this video. You can also find Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts, hats, mugs, stickers, and lots more at our spread shop. That link is also under this video.
Fantastic way to support the channel. Give them those marching orders, Jimmy. We'll be on our way.
Make more comics.
Boom. Let's try to blast these last bits out, man. Here's a comics cavalcade joint. I feel like we should try to do these last 2 in just 15 apiece. Yep. The Voodoo Child book, the Sienkiewicz Voodoo Child. This is the one I got for $5, because I couldn't find it online to read or anything.
Oh, you ordered it?
I ordered it.
Mm.
Yeah.
You may be disappointed. It's a bunch of Sienkiewicz, though. Can't complain about that.
Yeah, totally. And it costs $5, so
That's true.
I'm not gonna cry that much if it's not so great. Good.
Yeah.
I'll keep my eyes on that timer.
Hello and welcome to Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Jim Rugg.
I'm Ed Piskor.
Before we begin, I want to remind everybody that we now have a Cartoonist Kayfabe Patreon. It gives you access to our videos early, and at the King Kayfaber level, it gives you access to our recording session where we kind of go back and forth with our audience a little bit, get some input from them, and it'll give you a leg up on the kayfabe effect, which we have heard some great stories about these last couple weeks. One book in particular that went to over $100 a copy after we finished our video. So get early access there. You support Cartoonist Kayfabe. We appreciate that, and continue to build this community out. Also, we are working Cartoonist. The best way to support us and to support Cartoonist Kayfabe is to buy our books. You can see our bibliography here on your screen. Ed Piskor's Red Room, X-Men Grand Design, Hip Hop Family Tree, and WYSIWYG are all out there in a number of great formats for your consumption. Hulk Grand Design, Street Angel Princess of Poverty, Deadliest Girl Alive, and Plain Jane's are either out or coming to your comic shop soon. So add those to your collection, put those on your shelves, and read some good comics in the process.
So because we stream our recording sessions to the King Kayfabers at our Patreon, gotta pull the trigger even faster whenever you and I are deciding on books to check out. And this is one where when we were deciding the books for this week, I'm like, I don't have this Sienkiewicz joint. I'm gonna buy it. Found it for like $5 on Amazon. There's still a bunch right there, and that's a cue for you guys in the chat room to go scoop yours up before we put this video out, because they'll just get more expensive.
Yeah, this is a kitchen sink publication from 1995. I think of that as kind of like the tail end of about a decade of Bill Sienkiewicz just clicking on all cylinders and maybe inventing a few new ones along the way.
And something like this is hipper than what a lot of Dennis Kitchen stuff does. So this it reeks of Kevin Eastman influence. I would bet you.
Wouldn't surprise me. I can imagine Eastman being a huge fan of both Sienkiewicz and Jimi Hendrix. So
right.
Yeah, it feels like this could be a no-brainer for Kevin Eastman being in the middle of it. It's really interesting because they call out Will Eisner, both the writers and Bill Sienkiewicz, as being having some input on the book. And we looked at Wizard 51 recently, and it's a news item, and they even pull out Will Eisner's involvement. So it's kind of interesting from that regard. Speaking of Bill Sienkiewicz, I mean, that's the reason I'm interested in this.
That's
Nothing
all.
against Jimi Hendrix, but I mean, it's Sienkiewicz art, so that's why I'm into it. Really cool to see him doing some pencil art there. And I was looking at like the guitar and its hard edges for the pencil line, and it makes me think like, did he have a template that he's like penciling inside of to get that? It's a perfect edge.
No, you know what he does? Here's the thing. Here's the so fucking
Oh,
cool.
I'm so glad I brought this up.
Yeah, you can see videos of this guy doing like con sketches and shit, right? And he will take another piece of paper and just put it there and like go with the brush and get these like hard edges and stuff. Like he is a master of tools, and he will rip shit apart. He'll spray bleach on his work. He just is so adventurous. But he'll do that kind of thing where he just takes a piece of paper and will just brush along it. So it's probably, it's that simple.
You see an extra hand in this art in the form of the letterer.
Yeah.
It's not Bill Sienkiewicz lettering, which I don't know, good, bad, whatever.
Well, like we have that Daredevil piece where like he would have lettered this himself in the Daredevil.
Yeah, I can't tell what that is. It's digital. It's digital on top.
Yeah, it's very 90s digital.
It is very 90s.
And totally
even
like
some of this like black and white, I can't tell because I mean that's those are drawn letters. That's not a font, but it's something that looks like it's on top.
It does. Yeah, and totally like a symptom of Dave McKean kind of being out there.
There's some really great, again, from a practical illustration standpoint, like looking through this, there's so much cool stuff. I was studying the borders, and I believe they're taped off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could see the overlaps.
We talk a lot on here about process, of course, and tools. And I think that one of the things that you see here is Sienkiewicz leaning the most into traditional illustration methods. Yeah, and by that, he had access to photos, like family photos of Hendrix and stuff. So I think that's what you see really leaning into that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's going full like Bob Peak on this one.
Yeah, and I'm going to go relatively quick, pause at home if you want to study some of these pages a little more closely. But there's so much work here. Like this is over 100 pages of fully painted art by Sienkiewicz. Kind of remarkable, I mean, it's a big project for a painted book.
I'll tell you this too, man. Like, it's cool that we're checking out this kitchen sink version because I believe the version I bought is from Viking Press, which I think Viking was Stephen King's publisher for a good clip.
I can't wait to see that. It makes me curious. I'd be curious to see this on maybe a different paper. This is a very glossy paper, which is cool. I bet there's other ways to show it.
I bet it's probably similar. But the thing is, with the if the Viking thing on the Amazon purchase thing that I did, it was accurate, that implies full bookstore proper distribution, not comic shop direct market kitchen sink distribution.
This is a high end project. Like there's money in this book. And I don't know where all that money is coming from. If there were people that maybe had control of the Jimi Hendrix catalog, or it was like, this will sell.
Yeah, or like, was this going to be a Tundra book?
Interesting. It could be Kevin Eastman money.
Put a bunch of money into Sienkiewicz.
It's based on a screenplay. So you have both the writer and Sienkiewicz talking about adapting the screenplay and being credited for adapting the screenplay into this. It's very straightforward and linear in the storytelling.
Yeah.
I'm loosely working on a biography now, so that's part of my interest in like these biographical bits. This is him going through 101st Airborne when he becomes an airborne ranger.
Never knew that.
Badass. And like you see these kind of flourishes, right? He's jumping above this lake, but the lake is a guitar. So there's a lot of these little pieces that I think really, it's Sienkiewicz. Like you're not, no matter how the fidelity to like the source material, you're still going to get his creativity bursting out of these images.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a very thoughtful artist, illustrator, cartoonist.
But I do think some of this lettering is probably not him, even though it's somewhat integrated with the art. It just feels different than what I've seen with his.
But see, he will do that dabble.
This looks painted.
He will do that dabble with digital. Like the Turtles comic and stuff.
Yeah, he's definitely somebody that I'd like to talk to for a million reasons, but to ask about some of this stuff, because this is a pretty high profile, slightly different project. I look at some of these images and I think big numbers. You can see him applying lessons from other projects, and you can see them playing out maybe a little differently here. In this case, full color
for sure
versus your black and white. I love all the historical stuff. Like anytime you see these things, I want to talk to him about sourcing some of the imagery and reference materials that he would use for some of this stuff.
Some good 60s lettering there.
Definitely. Yeah, and almost
There's your big numbers.
using your found footage, you know, like going black and white with like news footage and media footage of the 60s. Other piece that's possibly interesting to some people is, of course, Jimi Hendrix dying at age 27, part of that conspiracy 27 club. You know, so you'll get to that because, again, it's a very straightforward, linear life story. But these moments, man, I love this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it's just a beautiful piece. And distorting. This feels like something that you would see distorted digitally.
Yeah.
Like for this to be, you know, presumably painted and actually the distortion in the artwork, I assume, it's so interesting, you know, because in 95, like desktop publishing is up and running at that point. So he's probably being influenced by what you're seeing done digitally.
Sure.
But then doing it, you know, in turn with his paints and his traditional media. Also, large panel counts. You know, the guy's drawing a ton for a pretty dense book.
Yeah, you know, he's got that approach. You know, like when you tape this down, it's probably you go like this with the blue and purple, and then put the stuff over top. It's probably, you know, they come up with their system, and him better than anybody like has his system of producing pages fast, because the amount of work he did of this quality starting in about 86.
Yeah.
You know, like you have to. You can only do that if you have your system set up.
One of the things I love with a biography is this kind of thing. Like, bring in the record covers. Bring in your poster promos.
Yeah, totally.
You know, I really like those kind of elements. And with a mixed media artist like Bill Sienkiewicz, that stuff folds right in.
Yeah.
It's cool to see it pre-digital, although the lines are blurred. You know, like these kinds of things, to me, that has to be the designer. And I wonder, is Sienkiewicz working with the designer? Because that's really kind of intrusive on the art.
Yeah.
You know, I can't imagine doing that without Sienkiewicz's involvement.
And once again, like him doing digital stuff, like we've seen his digital stuff before, and it was bleeding edge. It wasn't as smooth as what people who use the computer as a complete medium. He was rougher with it.
You can see, I think, where he's really connecting with the material. Like this scene, and I wonder, Ed, when you talk about him painting this stuff and having a method, like, is he working on, say, this whole 4-page scene because the colors are similar and stuff? Are all 4 of these pages up and active? I did some painting this past week, two canvases, and it's like you go back and forth. You know, you paint
you got
for a
your
while.
palette.
Yeah, you use those colors, but also like, all right, I've been staring at this for a while. Let me stare at this other one and come back with fresh eyes. And you can see this is one consistent scene, and it's that iconic scene of like setting the guitar on fire. It's amazing, like almost a centerpiece of this book.
Sure,
and I think
yeah.
Sienkiewicz is really going wild. You see 3 Hendrixes on this page.
You got to nail it.
Yes.
Like if you don't nail this piece, it's like that's a wrap. Like don't even make the book.
Yeah, this is really your superhero moment. Pretty awesome. This stuff speaks to me of Dave McKean. There's some real moments in here because I always think of like everybody rips off Bill Sienkiewicz, but I bet you some of these guys, like a Dave McKean who's really good, I bet you Sienkiewicz is also learning from some of the stuff he sees there as well.
It's that sphere of influence, no doubt, man. Like you can't just make in a vacuum.
It's one of the things I love about art is the idea that like the art's talking to other art.
Sure.
You know, you're going back and forth with this stuff. And again, reasons why I'd love to talk to both Dave McKean and Bill Sienkiewicz on here again and talk about some of those things. Because we know that that's part of what made Sienkiewicz so successful was him looking outside of comics and bringing those pieces into his pages. You know, in this case, in the form of illustrators. It's neat to see so many of these pieces that I think are taped off, because as we get further along, then you'll see other parts that are like hand-drawn panel borders. And also just that like 60s, like capturing some of those big moments from the 60s, I think really adds to the weight of this as a biography and kind of putting Hendrix in a specific time period.
Yeah, you got to have that context.
Yes. Yeah, it's these elements that speak to me in terms of trying to do a biography and what do you want to include. Like this, the black line art for the hands wrapping around the body and the guitar. Like I mean, Cage's was out at this point, you know?
Like I'm looking at this kind of stuff too, and I'm wondering if like this is a separate illustration that gets put on the acetate.
Oh, that's interesting, yeah.
Because look how sharp that is. You can't like draw and paint like that, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And some of it, like the lettering, which fits that as well. I mean, some of that's a font, clearly. So, Bill, come on and tell us about this.
Yeah.
Were you working next to a designer? Because, as you say, like there is reference to, digital work that Sienkiewicz is doing, and I'm always curious when a multimedia artist makes that transition. Like, he could have had a great career without ever touching a computer, but it seems like he knows his way around that too. I love this as Hendrix kind of becomes himself, almost superhero in terms of like starting to design his own clothes and wardrobe and put that personality out in a visual artist sense. LA stands out so much. You know, we've seen a lot of the world, but when you get to LA, man, it's just that bright sunshine and green light. I can't remember when Brought to Light was done. Is that early 90s?
That's like 86.
Okay, wow.
That's
yeah,
that's that old
80s.
period.
Because you see certain parts that, to me, you can see that, you know, it's that same artist. Figuring out stuff like this, like showing the road weariness of just having your stickers on your guitar case, even the line around there I really like. It's very organic. I think that's a pretty clever way to show a road trip and a lot of miles adding up. So, interesting Sienkiewicz work. Whenever this first came out, I got it in the 90s. I don't know exactly. Probably not when it first came out, but sometime pretty early on. I've had it for a while. All I cared about was black and white line art. Mm-hmm. And so, like, I would see a fully painted book and push back a little bit, like, I'm not doing that. That doesn't help me.
A lot of bad guys who were doing their McKean, doing their Sienkiewicz comics, and that adds to the pushback of like, just not quite there.
Look at how bizarre this is. If I saw that now, all I'd say is that's a digital. You're digitally manipulating the image.
Yeah, you're pumping up the magenta channel on a photo or something.
But for the time period, like, I assume that's all on paper, and it's almost envisioning how you can distort this stuff with digital and with video.
I mean, do you remember, like, when you would watch on a cathode ray tube television, sometimes the reds were two reds and would create a black,
yes.
or like the red would escape the holding line of like the shirt that was being represented. It would be that effect. So like that was a visual effect that you would see, and it almost looks like 70s film.
And this makes me think of the Love and Rockets 24 cover.
Sure.
Just the color palette.
Black and red
so cool to
is
think
so
of like
effective.
music and stuff. It really is. It really shines. And some of this is like high contrast photos put in and then just, I think, washed on top.
Yeah.
So again, the multimedia stuff I love, and seeing the lines breaking down, like where we had straight edges and tape, now we've got like clearly those are drawn white lines that are kind of like tracing the end of this, you know, as things go wrong. Man, it's a classic story too, right? It's almost that story of the success just destroying the part of the reason that Hendrix is there, right?
It's got to
wanting
be
to make music, but you get to the machine at some point, and supporting the machine is just everything.
It's got to be tough. Like 27. What did you know at 27? You know, these are kids.
When I was a kid and you would hear about Jim Morrison or somebody, Jimi Hendrix, being dead at that age, it's like, oh, they're an adult. Man, I look at it now and it's like you say, it is kids, and I can't imagine living 2 pages of this graphic novel and trying to figure it out, let alone doing it whenever you're a kid.
We're old enough now, man. Like I was in middle school when it's like Kurt Cobain, Tupac, Biggie, and we are at an age now where, you know, Kurt Cobain is stuck in time, and I look at him and I'm like, he's a squirt, you know, he's a kid, he's a little dude, you know what I mean? And that just is brutal. Like, to have a nice escalating career that is better than lateral movement is so healthy to a soul. You know, I feel we're very lucky to have like this gradual growth. Like, if you have that big stardom early, like I know if I would have,
I say that all the time.
Insufferable.
If I'd have been successful at any point as a kid,
insufferable.
I'd be the worst human being you ever met.
Totally.
A big team that works on this, and I love that Bill Sienkiewicz gets the biggest block of type.
Better.
Yeah.
Jesus.
For sure. So, kind of a, I wouldn't say unknown, but this is not a book I hear about very often or see very often. And it's substantial, man. It's a big chunk of Sienkiewicz art.
Yeah, it's never put in, Sienkiewicz's bibliography, like whenever people are naming the top 5 Sienkiewicz things, man. So, good to put on the channel. Not the last Sienkiewicz, and we do need to have the proper shoot interview, man. I'm gonna reach out, Jimmy. You good to go?
I am.
All right, Kayfabers, hit that Patreon because, like myself, you benefit from the Kayfabe effect. How should I put that here? Do some editing, man. Kayfabers, hit that Patreon. Just like this, I did with this book here. I got in early, got the cheapest copies available online before anybody else. And depending on your level of support, you're watching this video being streamed as we're recording it. so you could get in on the ground floor. Pays for itself, Jimmy.
That's right.
But the videos are brought to you by the books that we make. Jimmy, what do you have out there?
Hulk Grand Design coming to comic shops soon. Pre-order that one if you haven't already. Street Angel Princess of Poverty also available for pre-order. You can also pick up Plain Jane's and Street Angel Deadliest Girl live. And you can join me on patreon.com/JimRugg to see more of my comics and art and to download out-of-print zines and mini comics.
Red Room Crypto Killers issue 1 is being solicited right this very minute in your comic shops. Put in that order, put in your pre-orders, because these comics are not getting the trade paperback in quite some time. Not in 2023, man. So if you want to read them, this is how you got to get them. 2 trade paperbacks of Red Room out there right now, and I'm serializing this new stuff on my Patreon. $3 for the archive, more than 300 pages worth of comics. Less than a penny a page. Jump on that Patreon. Hip Hop Family Tree 10-year anniversary is this year, man. So scoop up some Red Room comics, X-Men Grand Design, WYSIWYG. All this stuff is available in your comic shop, and it keeps these videos flowing. Jimmy, what else do we have?
Subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe newsletter at the links below this video. You can also find Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts, merchandise, hats, mugs, stickers, all kinds of good stuff at our spread shop. That link is also below this video.
Another great way to support the channel. Given those marching orders will be on our way.
Read more comics.
If you're looking for a comics cavalcade, you can use that one right there.
Sounds good. Hey, is my water over there?
I might have been just drinking from it, so let me get you a fresh.
I'll get it.
Grab me a fresh too, man.
Man, it's so exciting. You're talking about Jimi Hendrix and like that. I don't know about overnight success, but huge success and what it is in comics. And there aren't that many comic success stories like that.
Yeah. But
they're talking to one,
No, that's true. And to a dude that had his head on his shoulders because he was old enough, because he was like 30,
It still would make your head spin.
At 30, I think you feel like you got some tools. And he had a wife, too, which is important. Because, you need that person to keep you grounded when you fly too close to the sun. This thing, I'm thinking about titles, Jimmy. Yeah. And it's like love, hate letter to... Or Image Comics gets roasted. Something like that is the approach. Image Comics eviscerated. Some hyperbolic language like that. I don't see her things. Boom. Good if you are.
Yeah, hit it. Hello and welcome to Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Jim Rugg.
I'm Ed Piscor.
Before we begin, want to remind everybody that there is a Cartoonist Kayfabe Patreon now. We encourage you to check that out and join up with us, and thank everybody that has done so far. Your benefits are access to these videos early, which can really offset the kayfabe effect. We've seen that happen recently with one of the books we highlighted going for over $100 a pop on eBay shortly after our video came live. So you get ahead of that, and at the King Kayfaber level, you actually can watch us recording and have some back and forth interchange with us. So check it out, see which one fits you, and we appreciate that support. The other way to support Cartoonist Kayfabe is to buy our books. We're both working cartoonists. Ed Piscor's Red Room, Hip Hop Family Tree. Happy birthday, 10-year anniversary on that. X-Men Grand Design and WYSIWYG are all available in print now, so add those to your bookshelf. Hulk Grand Design, Street Angel Princess of Poverty, Street Angel Deadliest Girl Alive, and Plain Jane's are my books that are out or coming out soon, so add those to your collection and read some good comics along the way. So we love bootleg comiks, and received a package in the mail from Barry Tan out of Singapore, a cartoonist that I know because I had seen some of his comics in anthologies along the way and have become quite a fan of his. But he's somebody, I don't know his age, but he must be close to our age, because in this book, which is going to focus on Image Comics, he talks about being a fan of Image early on like we were. So I'm guessing a similar age, which is right up my alley. He's speaking my language as he gets into kind of the history of Image Comics and these characters that we all had that enthusiasm, if you're of a certain age, of running to your comic book shop to check out each of these issues and series as they came out. And we're going to, I'll just start flipping through and we can see they're all built around that theme.
Yeah, it's not rose-colored glasses either, which is completely what speaks to me about this, because I think Barry does a great job at the pros and cons of what Image Comics brought to us. Because yes, we were so stoked on that stuff as it was coming out. You cannot explain that phenomenon now when people see these. They're some of the worst comics ever created in the medium of comics, but like that wasn't the point in certain ways.
This first section, the ABCs of Image Comics, super fun, and I like his choice. You know, you could do this as a zine of like one letter per page.
Sure.
But breaks it up in kind of a comic format, which makes for a nice package.
And he chooses the exact right things and has good commentary to go along with each. Phone is for Phone Bone. His book classed up the joint.
Very true.
Amazing, right?
B for Badrock, because Bedrock was already trademarked.
See, it's like such inside baseball shits.
It's really awesome. And as you say, you know, like he does pick the right stuff. Extreme Studios for RE would have also accepted that one under X. But I love like the idea of like, how do you represent Extreme?
And look at the dudes,
art,
man.
Perfect.
Merritt Michaels, Kiko Takadashi, Chap Yap.
It's so good. Little Tom Scioli shout out here with Godland. Gotta appreciate that.
This is the first image that I saw, and it popped up when we were doing our deposition videos. And check out our playlists for that stuff, man. The Todd McFarlane versus Neil Gaiman depositions, and Neil Gaiman is talking about how Todd McFarlane pays his people in love checks. So is that L?
It is
L is for love checks. Like that is so deep. It's rooted in Cartoonist Kayfabe in a way, because like who was thinking about love checks before we mentioned that shit?
I never heard it before those depositions. And it's nice to be able to throw a little Eisner in here too.
Yeah.
You know, some comics DNA.
A contract.
Kayfabe and Image.
A contract with Todd. Fucking genius.
It's good stuff. But I mean, it's a who's who, right? We've got Walking Dead, Max, Savage Dragon, Pitt. It's everybody we want.
The last panel in Wildcats 1 with the kayfabe Dan Quayle, and they don't even call him Dan Quayle. He just spells potato wrong in the way he says the word potato, and it's in there like genius. Redeemer or Anti-Spawn. See, that's how deep he is, because he calls him Redeemer and Anti-Spawn, and because like we knew him as Anti-Spawn, but he's called Redeemer. Like the toy was called. I mean, the first appearance is Anti-Spawn, but then it's called Redeemer and the toy. Like you got to be an OG to kind of get that minutia.
I love that Shadowhawk gets a full page splash. Always think Shadowhawk looks cool whenever guys draw him. So kind of cool to bring that one out. And there's a lot of artistry on display throughout this book, but you can see the different styles. A little homage to the Giffen style of Trencher, as well as the 1963 style. We were trying to remember USA's name, Ultimate Secret Agent. Good stuff. Violator for stealing hearts since 1992. Wildstorm gets a nice big group shot. It's really really impressive.
I was wondering how he's gonna figure out the X part. X Office.
Absolutely.
Genius.
Very good. Youngblood, another one worthy of that big splash page and ripping through the Marvel Comics logo.
Yeah, and he's doing his interpretation, like he's re-inking Rob. Z for Zombies,
Dead,
right? Must.
Black and white, absolutely.
It's a must.
Very cool stuff. And so I mentioned knowing Barry Tan, and the way that I found his art is he would do stuff for some of these anthologies that were like Image Grand Design or Darker Image.
Wizard Magazine.
You would see some of these pinups from these various spots. That's a fun mashup, right?
Totally.
Pit and Spawn together. Splitting Image 30 years later. Another one of how do we know that Barry Tan's for real? I think this speaks for itself.
Capturing the Don Simpson vibes, even with the lettering.
And he did a like an ash can of this, which is kind of cool to see it both in the black and white, because his black and white is highly rendered, like almost Drew Friedman or something, with like dots and these tiny little dashes to get grays on your black and white art.
He's using like a little grease pencil or something like that. And the Ashcan speaks to that vibe too, you know. That's the thing. This is like a compilation of a bunch of different little projects he did, and then he could put them under a banner, like, you know, one banner.
Yeah, really. Very referential to the Don Simpson versions of these characters.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's Splitting Image, you know, 30 years later.
Yes.
So where are they now? You know, he even has Gareb Shameless, and he calls him Gareb Shameless.
Yes, he does. Yeah, Gareb added to this Splitting Image.
It took us about 10 issues of Wizard to come up with that name, Gareb Shameless.
Fantastic.
Too bad. But it's all the guys, and it's catching us up post Splitting Image, and this is one of those things where you can only roast the ones you love, because Barry Tint is deep. He knows it all, but it's brutal. Like I would never accept to be in the seat on the dais to get a roast, because like
a roast.
it's too. I mean, it's a full roast, but like it's going hard fucking core, and it's actually very truthful to the facts of the matter and stuff. I love this where he, in Splitting Image, he was never called Eric Larson, always name withheld.
Yes.
Because the least kept secret in comics was that Eric Larson was the guy writing these name withheld letters, and so he's like, like I'm name withheld. You could call me, Eric Loutstone or whatever. But then talking mad smack on like the amount of readership that Savage Dragon has and things.
Yeah, real bad. It is. Every one of these, man, it's cutting promos.
Even the worst selling Marvel title sells like 5-1. Yeah. Savage Dragon.
It's tough. A really good. I love this foot. Almost Gorilla's version of that foot or hand rather for Valentino. But man, again, mark a good draftsman. Like you see these toes and fingers and stuff, and it's like
real solid.
Tan's really good.
Yeah, real solid stuff. Still capturing that Don Simpson vibe with the musculatures and a big, thick, bold ink line.
Yeah.
Mark Silvestri coming out on top, man. Got a Playboy wife. Like exploited every trope of comics. Like as it comes on, bag roll movement, whatever.
That's amazing. Oh man, poor Wilfs. The short end of the stick, timing wise, for his involvement in Image.
What can you say?
And ripping through the page to assert himself, Robert Cookman, the new face of Splitting Image.
And it's so perfect too, because we got buds, man, who like were there when Kirkman was brand new, like Battle Popes and shit, and just Eric, can I do this? Can I do that? Blah, 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 just like following them around, totally untested. And like making the deal for like a Super Patriot comic or something like before their very eyes, and it was just like, who is this annoying kid?
Pays off sometimes, man. Persistence, right?
Yeah, man. Ooh, Kenshin, like the Masked Rider, Ultraman version of Spawn.
It reminds me of all the doujinshi we've been looking at.
Yeah,
like I would want this one. If I saw this one, I'd pick it up. A couple of cool pinups. The Jay Lee Youngblood is a classic.
I feel like you went Jim Rugg with this.
This is amazing to me. Like, so one of the stories that we're going to see, I have the original art from. And I mention it because, like, I'll look at some of this stuff, and it's super precise, super tight.
I mean, it's better than Stephen Platt could understand anatomy.
And I think, like, is this digital? What do we have here? Like, I'm looking at all the cross-hatching, and it's imperfect on the very edge, which makes me think, like, that's real cross-hatching.
Yeah.
Like, he's really putting those lines down there. And I have some originals because, like, I was talking to him about his art, online, and he sent me some originals to see this because he is using a lot of different media. The Glory Hole Prophet. It's so much. This Man, This Planet. So you get a couple of 1963 pinups, another 1963 story, possibly for an official 1963 book. I don't know the status of that or where this appears. But beautiful art, and especially whenever he goes like full-on cosmic, trippy, psychedelic, and just in two colors.
Yeah.
To get that psychedelic in two colors, there's some really cool stuff where he's bringing in Kirby-isms, but the drawings kind of like, almost like the Kirby-isms are part of the costume or something.
Right.
Really sharp stuff. Another couple 1963 pinups. They all look really great to me. And you can see some of this is clearly digital, which is part of the reason I was like, what's he doing on paper and what's he doing digital?
The True Grit looking.
Because he seems to know his way around both. And I have no idea, like, I don't know what his day job is, but he must be a visual artist. Like,
yeah.
This is pretty exceptional stuff. For a hobbyist to do this, I'd be shocked. How about that for Turtles homage of like almost even the yellowy newsprint that those comics would have had. Savage Dragon's head on a pike.
Yeah, it's like the Image TMNTs, man, because it's like almost an Eric Larson.
Yeah, it is Mr. Glum there, the fifth turtle.
Right.
This is funny. It's the lobbying for a Violator verse. Whenever Spawn decides he's going to have his, the Spawn verse, why not Violator?
Barry Turner 10 is very harsh on the Spawn stuff. Like on the Todd McFarlane piece earlier, he's talking about like it should get the Guinness Book of World Records for having the most issues with the least character development.
Yeah.
And then development is so bad that we're going to spin off the titles and have like even less. Less material to hang your hat on. And
it's really clever though. Like he's like not very PC. Moving on. Ninja Spawn, I give you Sumo Violator. You know, like they kind of match up. You know, it's pretty funny. And then we get to my favorite part of the book, the Street Angel, Darker Image, Spawn crossover. And a pretty legitimate story in terms of Street Angel, in my opinion. Billy Kincaid, the child killer from Spawn, is trying to seduce kids with his ice cream parlor. Street Angel's on board for the ice cream parlor, but not the serial killer part of it.
Yeah.
To pay the check. Get a nice fight scene that goes diagonal in orientation. Cuts him in half. Gotta love that.
It's that one piece, man. Like, I just want to see that fillet. I just want to see that middle piece.
Yeah, absolutely. And Street Angel eating in classic Street Angel food fashion. The girl that she rescues, not so sure. So, super awesome. The cover in black and white here, and then some letters where Barry Tan talks about, you know, his history as a fan of Image Comics, and just some notes on like where your stories appeared, what the pinups are, and everything, and even kind of a great Peter David here in the back.
Yeah, man, slaying the beast, man. Which is once again speaks to, like, you had to be there.
Yeah, and so this is the original story that I mentioned that I have, and I pull it out to show off some of the stuff. These are screen tones, which is crazy to me because it almost looked like a wash whenever you see it in print.
Yeah.
But it's actually a screen tone, and he's carefully, you know, cut that tone out as you do with screen tone. But you get to really see like the feathering on this stuff. Almost hard to describe. It's so fine.
Yeah.
So very impressed with his work, and just, I don't know, man. This, you know, these dudes show up, and it's like you're in a couple of anthologies in a year or two window, and the next thing you know, like, you've got your standalone full color self-published piece. Somebody hire Barry Tan if he wants to do some comics work, because the dude's got some skills, man. And you can see mixed media here with like a grease pencil or a pencil.
It's goddamn right, man. And then, yeah, just like the little bits right there, and to see how that translates into the final piece. It does, you know, it can show up as dots or something. Like...
And really great character design. You know,
it really
making
is.
Billy Kincaid his own, but clearly it's Billy Kincaid.
Yeah, unmistakable good lighting.
Nice lettering.
Not bad.
It's a full package, so very cool. Barry, thank you for sending these Contraband Comic Cavalcade. I love it. Well done. And, you know, one more time I say what talented audience we have out there, and there's never been a better time in terms of the talent making comics today on every level.
Super sincere, man. Heck of a roast. And those Image Founding Father guys, they should be coming to you with open, with blank checks to buy their caricatures.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, put this out, you know, like do some more splitting image, and hit up Barry.
Good to go?
Yep.
Kayfabers, like, follow, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell so that we can notify you when new vids are available. But if you want to support the channel and mitigate any kind of kayfabe effect, hit up our Patreon. Depending on your level of support, you're getting some, if not all, of the videos that we post each week, well before the general public. And certain people at the highest level are even watching us record this video right this very minute. Jimmy, what else do we have out there, man?
Pick up my books, The Plain Janes, Street Angel Deadliest Girl Alive, Hulk Grand Design, and Street Angel Princess of Poverty. The last two coming soon, so pre-order those, reserve those at your local comic shop if you haven't already. And you can join me on patreon.com/JimRugg, where you can download out-of-print zines and mini-comics. You can see what I'm working on. You can see a lot more of my original art there.
Red Room Crypto Killers issue 1 is being solicited at your comic shop right now. Go to your shop, put in an order, put in a pre-order. We're not doing a trade paperback for quite some time. Not in 2023, that's for sure. So you want to read these comics, you want to support the comics, you got to get those issues. 2 trade paperbacks are out there right now today. The Trigger Warnings trade paperback and Antisocial Network. I'm serializing the new comics at my Patreon before they hit paper. $3 for the archive there. More than 300 pages of Red Room comics up there as we speak. Have a link tree in the description below this video. You could get to all those destinations. Jimmy, tell the people what else.
Subscribe to the Cartoonist Kayfabe newsletter at the links below this video. You can also find Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts, hats, mugs, stickers, and more merchandise at our spread shop, also in the link below this video.
It's another great way to support the channel. Give them those marching orders, Jimmy. We'll be on our way.
Make more comics.
Got a half hour. Peter Laird is down for an 11 session.
Excellent.
Kayfabers, man, we're gonna bust. We're gonna turn the stream off and move everything back into the other space. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We're gonna go through this chat and see what kind of questions came through. And wish us luck, man. Before the day is out, maybe before it's time for you to eat dinner, you're going to have a link to the Peter Laird shoot interview. And the other video we're going to shoot, you know, you saw we just did like, what, 5 things, man? Like, or 6 things. We're also going through TMNT issue 1 with Peter Laird. Like, what kind of a dream fucking video is that, man? So let's get our heads right, Jimmy. Let's fucking break this shit down.
Yes,
and go prep.
Thank you to everybody that pointed me at the that the Hulk Grand Design was a real thing and that it was available, because I might not have had a copy this week if it weren't for all of you. So thank you very much. Appreciate that, and have a great week, everybody.
Save this chat to go through it and see what the guys and gals have to say. Alright, guys, we're out, man. Be here next week, man. You're going to want to be here. Same deal, man. We're going to have an amazing guest.